Hi people. We hope you're having a great day today. Last week was a bittersweet one for all the Yellowstone fans out there. On the one hand, we watched the Season 4 finale of the epic series which, once again, managed to shock us with its mind-boggling ending. On the other hand, we were sad because the spin-off series of Yellowstone, 1883, had to reschedule its Episode 4 release date so that it wouldn't clash with the Yellowstone season finale. As far as the business is concerned, this was a smart move, but for fans who got used to watching Yellowstone and 1883 back-to-back on Sunday nights, it was an upsetting incident. Fortunately, we started this week with the necessary dose of an 1883 episode, which felt great. 1883 is following the story of the Duttons, just like the Yellowstone does. However, there is one major difference. 1883 focuses on the 200 years prior. This means that through the Duttons of the 19th century, we take a look at a very intriguing part of U.S. history. Most of us grew up watching Western movies with John Wayne starring it, or Red Kit with his charismatic ventures in the Wild West. However, none of those were realistic enough to provide a true understanding of the era. We're not claiming that 1883 carries a documentary-like quality that depicts everything by staying true to the historical facts. This would be too much to expect from historical fiction, and yet, we can confidently claim that 1883 is far from romanticizing the era by sugarcoating some incidents or presenting a heroic atmosphere. On the contrary, it shows the era with all of its brutality, disgust, and tragedy, which we highly appreciate. Episode 4 was also no different than the previous episodes in this respect, as it once again highlighted the difficulties of being a migrant in a foreign land, traveling in the era, and surviving in general. The episode started with Elsa's narration as usual. She mentioned how she appreciates these wildlands as she feels like they present a lot of opportunities while being home to a variety of living beings. Then, we watched her struggling to walk as her legs are hurting from riding with a dress. When she saw a gypsy woman riding with pants, she decided to get one for herself, which made a great scene to show how women gradually shift towards wearing pants. However, while trading for the pant, she revealed a secret of his father by expressing that James turned some of his money into jewelry and hid some of them on her. We feel like this reveal will cause trouble for her in the future, as such a secret cannot remain as a secret for long. We also witnessed the romance between her and Inez as the two kissed each other. The scene was witnessed by James, who surprisingly was pretty okay with it, which we believe is unlike the usual manners of most fathers of the era. That being said, so far the show worked very hard to prove to us that James isn't like other fathers, which is something we find a little bit forced but also get sense he needs to be the nice guy to balance out the rest of the story. For James and Shay, the biggest issue was to move the wagons across the Brazos River, so that they can move to Oregon. They knew some people are bound to die in the process, but they rolled up their sleeves to minimize the casualties by preparing a well-thought strategy. Still, the experience was hard to swallow from beginning to end. The Duttons crossed the river over the night so that they wouldn't have to deal with it in the chaos. They also thought they can be more helpful to the rest of the crew if they go ahead. Despite the strategy of moving people across, there was a problem. The wagons were too heavy to cross a river of which the ground is filled with mud. Shay forced the German migrants to leave their belongings there, as he did at the very beginning of the series. It seems Germans didn't take his words so seriously at the time. However, now, since their lives are at stake, they had to leave everything they owned behind. It was a tragic process since some of them had to leave their livelihood behind, such as the musician who dropped off his piano. In a way, the group had to leave Germany behind to move to the U.S., which was heartbreaking to watch. Despite their efforts, they still had to experience a lot of loss while crossing the river. We learned at the beginning of the episode that in Germany, it was forbidden to swim at the time. Thus, the migrants were highly afraid of the river and had trouble crossing over even while holding onto a rob. Many people drowned. Many had gone through severe anxiety and panic attacks. The Duttons have been helpful throughout the process, but it was a traumatic experience for them too. Especially Margaret, who always portrayed a pretty cool character so far, got severely traumatized as she was pulled over by a drowning woman and failed to rescue her while trying to save her life. By the end of their struggle in the river, she was both physically and psychologically hurt. At the end of the episode, Elsa, whose hopeful narrative started the episode only a few minutes ago, witnessed the dead bodies floating over the river and saw her mother sitting riverside, traumatized. At that point, her narrative tone shifted as she said, I always thought I was immune to the dangers of this land as if we made a deal. However, crossing Brazos showed me that no one is immune from the dangers of the land, and the land was hating us. What did you think about 1883, Season 1, Episode 4? Did you enjoy the series? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.